The temple was designed so that the light from the rising sun could only enter the sanctuary on 2 days every year. As the rays enter the temple, they burnish the statues of the gods with their golden light before penetrating the sanctuary. Even then, one god remains in shadow. Ptah, Lord of creation, as if the origin of the universe must forever be concealed.
Hello everybody, hope everything's well. Now, for those of you who watch my videos, you're probably familiar with this book. I talked about it in Neural Melanin. I just want to give a brief reintroduction for the topic of this video. Now, in 1997, Nigel Kerner was first introduced the notion of aliens known as Greys coming to Earth, explaining that Greys are sophisticated biological robots created by an extraterrestrial civilization they have long since outlived. Now, when we talk about extraterrestrials, we're talking about something occurring or originating outside the Earth, okay? Now, when we talk about the Earth, most associated with ground, soil, and what have you, those are the modern terms. In ancient times, it meant the material world, or the physical world, okay? Now, this physical world is a false world. And we talked about this before, it is the demiurge, okay? Now, I want you to watch this clip of Bobby Hemmett explaining how this demiurge even came about. Check it out.
Part of it. Let's go through the original story on what happened in the cosmos. In the cosmos, you got the Great Mother. The Great Mother gives birth to 7 stars. The chief star, the number 8 star, which was also the first star, was called Sirius. One of the sisters at another level was called Sophia. Lilith in Kemet in Egypt, Lilith, or either a form of Maya. Just different mythologies have the different names. Went off and had a child by herself. That child was halfway created. We're talking about energy. This child came to this part of the universe and set up, barricaded himself off to a small portion of the universe. I must validate this stuff for you so you can understand this. First of all, you can get the parts of that stuff in the other Bible. The stuff that they call Gnosticism. See, the Book of the Dead, we thought, the Afrocentric people thought, the Book of the Dead was like the main religious book of Egypt. What they didn't realize is the Egyptians or the Kamites and the ancient people never had one book. See, these are modern people looking back with modern eyes trying to understand the ancient world. So because they saw the Book of the Dead, all the Afrocentric scholars are saying this is the Egyptian main book. The Egyptians didn't have one damn book. This is just the pyramid text. That's all that shit is. And this particular book explains the pantheon and a form of the journey of Heru or Horus, but it doesn't really go into the real theology. That's why you ain't had nobody being able to teach you that shit. This is a ritual book for the priests. And yes, the only person who explained it, Gerald Massey did. You can get part of the mythology in his book, the Egyptian Book of the Dead by Gerald Massey, which is also, you can get, he explains it. But my point is the real theology is within some stuff called Hermeticism, later on named Gnosticism. And what they did is they took the real shit and they translated it into Coptic, and in 1945, they dug it up and it's called Gnosticism, and that's for true pharaonic thought. So now we know what the pharaohs said about the universe. And it's simple. This particular deity that was created by one of the sisters of the god was halfway created. He jumped out the side of his mama womb. The Dogon talk about the same thing. The Egyptians talk about it later on too. They just named it Set to get back at the older people. See, when you want to get in a fight with other people, you name your devil their god. It's some real fucked up shit. Excuse the expression. So the word Set is one of the ancient deities. The later things shouldn't be named that, but that's the way they do things. That's when we start messing up. You name your god, you name your devil somebody else's god that you don't like. So this is how they Set thing. Set is the oldest name of the deity of the heaven. When the great mother had her first child, it was Set, which is a form of Sirius, the first of 7 stars. So, somewhere in the constellation of Orion, because Osiris is in the constellation of Orion, one of the sisters went off and had a child by herself, through mistake, I guess. But it wasn't balanced with the both energies of the male and female energy, or the energies of the god. And this child was halfway created, a renegade, a psychotic entity that came down and created a small section of the universe for himself and barricaded himself off. And that's the planetary spheres that we have here. He had a group of helpers with him, and they came and they created a semi-physical Earth. As a result, they created both a male and a female body, and they wanted the body to worship it.
All right, this being that Bobby Hemmett was just discussing is none other than Ptah. Now, I want to read this quick page out of Great Aliens and the Harvesting of Souls for you. There were also 2 dwarf gods in ancient Egypt, Bes and Ptah. Ptah was later known as Bes. Bes was a protector of sexuality, childbirth, women, and children. His temple was recently excavated in the Bahar Oasis in the middle of Egypt. Now, when they talk about these temples, those are the ancient labs that they don't allow most people to see. Now, Ptah was associated with regeneration and rejuvenation. It was strangely coincidental that the 2 dwarf gods seem to have been preoccupied with all the procedures that implied genetic engineering, something the Greys seem to be obsessed with to this day. Could these dwarf gods be the Greys themselves? That may very well be the case. Now, when Bobby Hemmett talked about he had helpers to help on his endeavor to make his own barricade part of the universe, to create his own world, these Greys were created to help him in that endeavor. Now, we already talked about the war that happened, and how there was purposely genetic defects so that we are not born with this power open. If there was you can go back to my video, The Ancient Ones, and we talk about that. Now, if blacks weren't genetically defected right now, you would be born as a child being able to do telekinesis as a baby. You understand? But there was genetic tampering with the original man and woman. Not to say that one cannot still achieve this, but now you have to activate it before you can start using it. In ancient times, you were just born with it active. You see what I'm saying? When we talk about it being active, we're talking about your pineal gland. Now, where do you think they get the idea of the little green man? Okay, that is Ptah. All right, these governments are in communion with ancient alchemist scientists. That's it. And they use propaganda, which I'm about to show you right now, to keep most of the public in the dark. That's why most people believe, oh, there's aliens, when we know that's all a fabrication. Okay? Now I want you to check out this clip of them making living robots using frog embryos. They are now making biological robots. Okay, now in this book, Area 51, An Uncensored History of America's Top Military Base, written by Annie Jacobson, she talks about how the Roswell crash was staged by the Russians. Okay, now if you watch my previous videos, you will know that the Russians are controlled by the same people who run America. Okay, now I'm going to play this little clip from the Joe Rogan show of them discussing about this event. She's also going to mention how it's remarkable how the CIA had this technology and they're always ahead of technology, which we already know the deal as to why. You can watch my previous videos, Catholics in Action. You can also watch ancient technology masqueraded as modern technology. All right. And without further ado, let's check out this clip.
Now, Stalin and the Russians created something that mimicked a UFO, something that looked like it would be from another planet. Is that what they did?
Mothership.
Mm-hmm.
In those days, drones were, there was a mothership and a drone was attached to it, and it was jettisoned off. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, according...
In those days?
Well, in 1947, 48,
What do
right?
you mean by...
Well, they didn't, I mean, that was drone technology then.
Okay.
Right? So there's a mother craft, like an aircraft, and then the drone is like a small aircraft under it, and it gets jettisoned off. And that was what the craft was. It was jettisoned off. So Stalin actually, according to the source, invaded our airspace, which was the deep embarrassment to Truman.
So he invaded our airspace and then let this drone crash land on the ground with these things that turned out to be human.
Yes.
They looked like aliens, but they turned out to be humans that were manipulated surgically to look like aliens.
Yes, as a way to, and remember, I mean, not remember, but where this was, you know, very close to a nuclear weapons base, to our White Sands military base. I mean, this is like not a place you want the Russians to be able to get near,
Right.
you know. I mean, what was interesting is at Area 51, we then went out and mimicked all of those. One of our early drones was a mimicry of that. It was the there was a M21, which was the mothership, and a D21, which was the daughter ship. So
How did they pilot them? Was it wirelessly like we do now?
No. Then it was like there was a pilot in the mothership, and they kind of let it go. Right, and it flew off. I mean, there's incredible stories of what the CIA was able to do out there at Area 51 with their air branch, you know. The technology, they're always ahead of technology. That's what's remarkable.
So let's not forget that Stalin is a part of the grand plan to psychically drive the whole world to its destiny. You understand? Because this is ran by Freemasons. We already know who runs Freemasonry. You understand? None of this was by accident. Everything that you see going on, the mainstream only gives you pieces of history as to what was going on. Okay? Now, you can look up Phil Valentine. He talks about how they're having their own secret war. And that's just to decide who's going to be ruling in the next age when they try to renew the demiurge. That's it. But as far as them working together to keep the melanated man and woman down, that is the idea. Because they need that particular melanin in you so that they can keep going. Pretty much a genetic farm, if you will. Okay? Now, I want to show you this clip talking about how they're still cloning in remote areas in the Middle East. Okay? Most don't know that Ptah is the Egyptian Enki, or Enki is the Sumerian Ptah. Okay? Enki is known for creating the human race. When we talk about he's creating the human body, or this flesh prison, so that the soul can be trapped within it. Okay? That's where the genetic defect comes from. He also used albino blacks so that he can create the Caucasian, which I already talked about in previous videos.
Take a look.
In the eerie blue light of his secret lab, one of the world's most controversial scientists shows off his creation, cloned human embryos that are genetic carbon copies of their father.
Oh, my babies are doing well. They look beautiful.
Filmed for a TV documentary, Dr. Panagiotis Zavos implants 11 of the embryos in 4 women, one of them British, in the hope of producing the first cloned human being. The procedure is a criminal offence in the UK, but not in this undisclosed Middle Eastern country.
I think we have 3 very good embryos that could be in utero today, and that if implantation is successful as well, and the pregnancy is maintained, as we say in the US, we have a home run.
Dr. Zavos also reveals he's produced cloned embryos from 3 dead people, including Katie, who died in a car crash. He injected her DNA into a cow egg, though he hasn't implanted the animal-human hybrid. British scientists have condemned his work as reckless. Cloning of animals, such as Dolly, has shown the technique carries risks of severe congenital abnormalities.
I find it A, incredible, and B, disgusting, because he's sowing false hope to begin with. So the individuals who are involved in this experiment, and that's what it is, an experiment, may well not realise that the outcome is almost certainly going to be negative. And to put couples through that, in my opinion, is unethical.
Dr. Zavos adapted a standard cloning technique for his human patients. He first took an egg from the mother and stripped out the nucleus containing 99.9% of her DNA. He then took a skin cell from the father and extracted the genetic material. That was injected into the empty egg and given a jolt of electricity to form a cloned embryo. Within a matter of days, the embryo would have grown into a ball of 32 cells, which Dr. Zavos implanted into the mother's womb.
Now, as you can see, the government is in contact with ancient African alchemists who are at a higher state of being, probably operate on the 360 senses, which will seem godlike to someone who only operates on the 5. Okay? That's exactly what's going on here. And this genetic experiment is going on to this very day. That's why people around the world, even African children, see these grays. Okay? So, again, a lot what's going on. The idea of little green men comes from Ptah. All right? It's even known that when people get abducted, they would get abducted right after by government officials, and then they would ask what the Greys wanted from them and things of that nature. Because they're still left in the dark with a lot of stuff too. This being ain't telling them everything. Okay? But it is telling them to make this seem like this is aliens from outer space. All right? So that people can get confused and not understand, like I said before, that these are alchemists, ancient alchemists, still in contact with the modern man today. But thank you for listening, and peace and balance to the ancient ones.